Yeah, thanks for the tip.
For your Bible?
Come on. I've been pretty prepared lately. Okay, are we ready?
Recording in progress.
Call the meeting to order of City Council, Monday, February 13th of 2023. Roll call, please.
Dave Anderson,
Here.
Tom Linus,
Here.
Here.
Laura Tulowitzki,
Here.
all present.
Excellent, thank you. Next will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our next item is approval of minutes from the City Council meeting January 9th of 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion by Tom, second by Karen. Any questions, comments, edits? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is approval of the monthly expenditures via roll call vote.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the monthly expenditures as reviewed.
Motion by Karen,
Second.
second by Laura.
Laura Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Carrie Novacek,
Yes.
Tom Linus,
Yes.
Mayor McGrath,
Yes.
Jen Mazias,
Yes.
Carl Broberg,
Yes.
Dave Anderson,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all for your work on that. Next item is public comment. Is anyone here tonight to give public comment? If so, please step forward to the microphone at the podium and sign in, and then state your name and address, please. And we do keep that to a 3-minute time frame. Someone was gonna order me a little timer. Who was that? I can't remember who said.
Am I going to do public comment right now?
Sure.
Okay, my name is Cora. 765 State Highway 13. Yes, anything else?
That's it.
Hello, nice to see you all. Thanks for being here, and I'm glad to be here. And I am here to say that I would like to talk about the proposed glamping project that we have been discussing here. And I am here to say that I care about this area. I care about how the experience of life here. And I am here to say that I feel that this open space is extremely important for the people of this area, and that our greatest asset is our green space. And this is what people come here for. They come here for our community to experience it, because we are still a community here. And that doesn't happen very much. And to see our community still very strong and being a community to experience, and that this space is so important to our own sense of space in our own minds, and also to be able to run and have open space for children and as adults. And so this enormous amount of money that would be put into these glamping spaces, and the amount of money that it will take to keep them up and to maintain them, I ask that that be reconsidered, as a space that we can work together as a community so that we can all go there, because once it is glamping, it will be very hard for the public to be able to enter that space because it'll be people's energetic space. It'll be just for the campers. And so for us, it will be exclusive of us as the public. And so this is important, I think, to think about and to realize of that what draws people area fiscally and for interest in for us fiscally it's this area, and it's been because they want to see this way of life that we hold so precious, and that this is an area that is so important, even though it's supposedly it is, I think, is it 1/19th of the open space. It is exponentially greater in terms of where it is and what it does for us as a community. My mother, Judith Payton, did a lot of work with children in this area, and they're growing up with a sense of the environment. And my mom and stepfather, Judith and Michael Payton, did a lot of nature experience and learning how to be in nature and education and joy in the woods without screens, without all the accoutrements that cost so much money. So if they could do that on such a tiny amount of a budget, then with the community involved, so much community, that what can we do here in this space that would allow that with so much less of this overhead? So thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks, thank you.
Anyone else here for public comment?
Hi, my name is Roth Edwards, and I live at 221 West 6th Street, Washburn. And my share tonight will be in response to a question that emerged at the November 14th City Council meeting. And the question asked essentially, what is this land that we know as Washburn's jewel? What does it mean to you? What makes it precious to you? And how can you share your idea for it with the world? And I would add one additional thought to that is what makes this land that we know as Washburn's jewel and its lakefront trail, what makes it meaningful to Washburn in the future in terms of our legacy? And so I wrote this really in response to that question. Thank you very much for that question, Council. And here's my own response, entitled "The Legacy of Washburn, Wisconsin, a Jewel of America's North Woods." The city of Washburn, Wisconsin was forged by human hands from the great northern forest of the slice of the continent called the USA. The raw materials wrested from the ancient forest provided the building blocks of the biggest building boom the world had ever seen. Living hardscrabble lives, Washburn's early residents did the physical work of the big firms. Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Louis, Detroit, Omaha, Columbus, Peoria, and Washburn itself. Remnants of infrastructure along Washburn's Lake Superior shoreline. Both of those play a role. By recognizing the worth and value of the story etched on our lakefront, Washburn's present generations can build a bridge to a flourishing future for city's youth, as my sister Tora was just mentioning. And in committing on this vital matter of lakefront development, to follow the most fundamental democratic precept, majority rule, the city of Washburn can firmly establish itself as a, quote, government of, by, and for the people. If we so desire and resolve, in 2023, the people of Washburn can establish the ordinance reading, quote, no lands owned by the city of Washburn that are held open to or used by the public for recreational, conservation, or open space purposes may be converted to any commercial use, including but not limited to campgrounds or similar uses, whether operated by the city or private property, without such conversion being approved in a binding referendum. In so doing, Washburn, a town with a vintage history, a jewel of Lake Superior and America's North Woods, can secure its legacy as a town where the majority vote of people became the final arbiter of public land use and development decisions, a town that kept a promise to the future by protecting and further defining a sacred feature of its rich and storied past.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks again for the question, and there you have my response.
Appreciate it. Anyone else here who would like to give public comment? Anyone online? You don't see anyone, Tony? Okay, last call. And seeing no one else, we'll move on to our next item, which is mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments. Just a few brief announcements. Wanted to give a word of thanks to our Parks Committee and everyone who participated in the public input sessions over the two evenings. There were probably about 20 people overall that came and gave some valuable input on what they would like to see as far as the campground expansion plans go. So stay tuned on that. We look forward to seeing the work of the Parks Committee come to us next month. Also, on that same topic of public meetings, we have some upcoming public meetings. Two of them on the same day, February 23rd, at 9 a.m. and at 6 p.m. And that is regarding the design details for phase 2 of the highway project. So anyone who is interested in giving some input on that as that planning takes place, please plan on joining us and spread the word to anyone that you think may be interested as well. There is information and more details on our website. Right when you go to the city website, there's 2 buttons, and one of them is for the highway plan. So just click on that button and it takes you to all the details on that information. 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. No, sorry, 6 p.m. 9 a.m., 6 p.m. on the 23rd. And then lastly, just a quick update. The comprehensive plan update is nearing completion, and I'll look for a public hearing this spring on that. And I believe there is a draft of the comprehensive plan that is in the Plan Commission packet for sure, but no, it's on the website as well. Thank you. If you would like to review that, I highly recommend that you read that. It's a long document, and I may have said this before, but it's really some good information. So I would really recommend that anyone who has any interest in planning for the city take a look at that comprehensive plan document, and please participate in the public hearing, likely in April of this year. And that is all I have for announcements, and I don't have any proclamations or appointments. So we will move on to the next item, which is discussion and action on draft certified survey map and utility easement for tax IDs 32664 and 33446 in the 300 and 400 blocks of East 6th Street, Turnus and Melphus petitioners. And that is tab 1 of your packet. There was also an additional document that Scott included for an update to that. And with that, I think I'm gonna maybe turn it over to you, Scott, to lead us through this. Yes, looking for a motion.
I'll motion to approve the transfer of 10 feet of frontage from lot 1 to lot 2.
Motion by Dave and a second by Laura. Thank you. Are we looking for some clarification on the payment of that as part of the motion?
Well, I would say the clarification on the motion, you can add the payment. If we don't need a motion, I can just do that on that. But the motion should include the creation of a utility easement as outlined as well, is what I would recommend.
Yes, I can add all of that. Motion.
Okay. Motion amended. Laura, are you okay with that?
And if there are any questions, petitioners are in the audience.
Sorry, Laura, you said you were fine with that amendment? Okay, okay. Does anyone have any questions about this? I think that was helpful to get that additional memo, and if anyone has questions of our petitioners, as Scott said, they're here. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. All right, our next item is discussion and action on request to purchase lot 49, tax ID 38430 on Fortier Road. John Sapinick petitioner. This is tab 2 of your packet. And I want to thank you for coming forward with this offer. I don't know if we are looking for, if anyone cares to make a motion at this time, or
would you need a motion to, that we consider or negotiate in closed session, or, I mean, what kind of motion do
do we need a motion to discuss in closed session later? I mean, it's on the agenda in closed session.
If you want to go to closed session, you would just defer any action to closed session. We'll vote on that when we get to that.
So a motion can be made.
So this would be an opportunity. I mean, if you don't want to discuss any, if you just want to flat out accept it, you could make that motion. If you have any questions for Mr. Sapina, now would be a good time to ask those questions.
And we can have that discussion and question without making a motion for action. Okay. So Karen?
I do have a question that maybe John can answer, and it deals with the 6-year window for completion of improvement on the property.
Okay, do you mind coming forward? Sure. Thank you.
Should I sign in here still?
No.
Okay.
So your question is?
Yeah, my question is, if you could explain a little more detail, the rationale for the 6-year window before improvements.
Yes, so the plan there is to provide adequate time for planning and my own personal financial window. Not that it needs to be 6 years, but I prefer to build a nice building without undue pressure, basically. So,
Could you speak into that microphone?
yeah. Does this not-
You have to get really close. Yeah. Is it on? Actually, give it a tap. It was, okay.
Low battery.
Low battery.
Low battery. Okay, sorry. I can speak up too.
Okay.
That would be helpful. So my answer was that 6-year window is my own personal timeline that would help for design and implementation of plans. And then also just it allows for my own personal financial timeline. I'll be, long story short, my other investments will be debt free at that point, and then I'll be ready to go. I will more than likely be building much sooner than 6 years. I don't intend to purchase to simply hang on to things and pay taxes. That's not my goal. My goal is to develop and build this, and to build much before then. But I figure it doesn't, I'm not necessarily interested in undue pressure either. So I hope that's okay. I apologize.
Just one follow-up question. Initially, any more information or insight?
Yeah, that's another reason of design time. There's some geographical structures to the property that I want to make sure the design and implementation is adequately given due attention. it's much easier to think of an initial structure right off the bat, and then, my purpose here, this property is twofold. The city clearly needs more housing, and also personally, this is a good, in my opinion, a good investment opportunity. So, and then my parents at some point want to be up here as well, so you never know. But it's kind of a win-win, I think, for both parties, myself and the city, and that's why I'm here.
Yes, another follow-up. Absolutely. Go ahead.
The is 3.89 acres. So I'm assuming, and I just help me understand this, that the duplex would be done in such a way that if at a later date, a second one is wanted or financially feasible.
Absolutely. The zoning there, acres is one primary structure. And so.
It has sufficient room.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
All right.
that's a good question.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Satina? And then one question that I have is generally the city likes to have something in there about if there isn't development after a certain period of time, the city would have the right to purchase back or receive back the property at that time. So that would be another reason I'm guessing the 6-year time frame is desirable.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you're able to do what you need to do before that type of clause would kick in.
And that would be purchased back. Max, write that down, please.
All right, very good. I just want to make sure that is one of the items that's, to be discussed if we decide to take action later, unless anyone cares to make a motion.
I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
How long would it be before you start on the first duplex? How many years?
Before I start on it?
Yeah.
Well, again, there's some unknowns. There's about 4 right now, so I have to kind of see what the site looks like and see where drainages are and that sort of thing. I can't give you a firm timeline, but it would be
2 years.
I could foresee starting it within 2 years. Absolutely, yeah. Materials are becoming more, everything is trending in the right direction.
Anyone else?
I do feel it's necessary to share. I am not sure I know everybody in the group. I do have a good history of working with the city of renovated the Hawks building down here, and so I hope that helps the council understand that I'm confident and able to build structures, and I'm more than comfortable with that. So I hope that maybe might help everyone understand that.
And appreciates fine craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, very good. I think that's all the questions we have, and we'll probably end up taking this up in closed session later then.
Sure.
All right.
Yep. The clarification, do I have a role in that, or you guys?
I don't think so, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep, no, you're good to go.
Yep.
Thank you so much. All right. So for now, with no motion, we'll move on to our next item. Discussion on resolution 23-004 to apply for community investment grant for Brewing Badger LLC and redevelopment of property at 204/206 West Bayfield Street.
And I would move approval of resolution 023-004.
Motion by Karen, second by Dave. Any questions?
I talked to him here the other day, and he said because of this, that's a very good possibility. It's open by the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, that's the timeline,
Yeah.
hopefully.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, it still looks good for that, so. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, our next item is discussion and action on resolution 23-003 for Harbor Commission Budget Amendment Number 1 to pay off BCPL loan issue 02020011.01 1 year early.
To adopt resolution 2023-003, amending harbor commission budget.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion by Carl and second by Karen. Any questions?
A comment, it's always nice to pay off a loan.
Absolutely. A year early, save a little interest.
Yes.
All right, looks like a win-win. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is discussion and action on amendment to agreement with Ayers and Associates for add alternate projects for phase 1 of the Bayfield Street project. This is tab 5 of your packet. And it looks like we have some work to do.
Madam Mayor, I would move approval of an amendment to the Ayers contract in the additional cost of $101,700 to add alternate projects onto the Bayfield Street Phase 1.
I'll second that.
Very good. Motion by Karen and second by Tom. Questions?
Just a comment. You know, the presentation that we had last meeting, I thought was really very helpful to look at what were some things that really need to be done and can be added into this engineering contract. They're on site already, and especially the stormwater issue on Washington Avenue. So, you know, I think we agree that those were important projects to work on. And I would think that this would make sense to add it on now and not wait.
This is our opportunity, which will not come again for quite some time. Any other questions, comments, or discussion?
No, I just keep thinking of what we're missing. Like, what do we miss, like other opportunities, you know, making a lot of questions on this project. And I guess we're having an open house, right, or the discussion, gonna be more of some public meetings on this coming up, right?
On the phase 2.
That's phase
are
2.
coming up.
So phase 1,
Phase 1, the only thing I think that we're planning on talking about for phase 1 is some beautification discussions. So there's still some opportunity there to talk about, you know, decorative things and additional things that we might want to work together on as a community. What do we want the downtown streetscape to look like?
Yeah.
That's still
out there.
out there. Because that will all be.
Remember the money we saved by not doing the colored brick? Remember? Saved a bunch of money by not doing the colored brick. We said we were gonna do beautification.
Yeah, it's important to talk about beautification, absolutely. Yes,
And
Karen.
Mayor, am I right in my recollection that the planning and zoning Thursday, this Thursday?
Planning Commission, yeah,
Planning Commission is
assigned Planning Commission to, and so that's on the upcoming agenda to start that discussion. And there have been some initial discussions with, you know, who those stakeholders might be, who would want to be involved in that conversation.
Okay.
So look for some upcoming meetings and discussion coming up on that. Yes, Tom?
I was looking on here and I don't see, one of the things we were talking about doing has to be done is replacing the water main from Main Street as far up as 4th Avenue or 4th Street on 8th Avenue.
That is one of the add alternate projects that was discussed last month.
I didn't see it.
So
Maybe I missed it.
it's in the, it's in paragraph, paragraph 1, repair of the, of 8th Avenue from Bayfield Street to West 4th Street. It is listed on page, that's on page 1, paragraph 112.
All right.
The amendment number 1 to agreement, that page.
okay.
All right, anyone else?
It's basically what we talked about last month.
Yes.
eliminated.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I
That
just,
happens.
I mean, that was a pretty long discussion.
All right. Seeing no other questions, comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for gathering all that complicated information together. Speaking of complicated information. No, just kidding. Our next item is discussion and action on 2023 administration goals and objectives and a review of 2022 goals. And this is tab 6 of your packet. Would you like to lead us through?
I suppose the best place to start would be the review of the 2022, and just open it up to questions or comments.
Well, I'll start with a comment. I'm really pleased with the progress that was made on the goals and objectives. That's something that, before I was involved in the city government, I did look at the goals and objectives and often, wondered what the updates were on those. And this year in particular, I think we did a good job of staying on top of those goals and trying to make sure that those remained the priority throughout the year, despite everything that comes at us constantly on top of it. We really did, I think, you in particular did a good job of steering us, straight down the path of addressing these. So thank you, and to all the staff for your work on keeping us on track with these things. I'm really pleased with the fact that we did accomplish some of these rather lofty goals. The ambulance staffing, getting a referendum passed, that was huge. So much work happens to make these things actually come to fruition. So my only comment is thank you, and good job. Anyone else have any comments or questions on the 2022 goals? The sewer line reroute, that happened, the ARPA funding happened to help us out with that. So that was excellent that was able to come together, and the county joined us in making that happen. And without that cooperation and partnership at all those levels, that may not have happened. And now with the investment in that business, they're going to continue to invest in that business, into the future, and that will only help our future as a community. So, the one, I have to say, my biggest disappointment is that we didn't get to sidewalks. That's something that has been a burr in our saddle for a number of years. We've had different groups come and talk to the council, again, before I was involved. And it's not an easy subject. It's very complicated and costly. But I'm determined that we're going to get there this year, in part because we have to some extent. With this planning for the phase 2, there are some sidewalk questions and issues that are going to come up as part of that planning that are going to almost make us have this discussion on a citywide basis. So I would like everyone to start thinking about where do you want to see sidewalks in the city, and where do we not want to see sidewalks in the city? They take time, money, and maintenance. So it's a big hot topic that we didn't get to, but it is there again for next year. So we won't let it get away. Anyone else on the 2022 looking back? Jen?
Yeah, the comprehensive plan. I mean, so it says that the plan before council, at the April meeting, is that really, do you think that's gonna happen, even though we're not having public meetings on the comprehensive plan until April?
So right now, the Plan Commission will be considering a resolution to recommend adoption at Thursday's Plan Commission meeting. And if so, I would then schedule a public hearing, which would be at the April council meeting.
Okay.
It has to be a 30-day notice on that. So it's a matter of what people think of it, but it would be potentially up for adoption at that April meeting.
Yeah, we just haven't had a lot of public involvement, I guess, in that. Maybe people have been open to come to, we've worked out the, bits and pieces together, right? But I don't think we've ever had anything where we've like rolled it out and looked at it as a community is my biggest concern. Because I just want it to be useful, right? I really want my documents to be useful. Anyway, and I know we wanted to go through this, and I know Planning Commission has spent a lot of time. I haven't been Planning Commission, you guys spend a lot of time. Parks Committee, we spend quite a fair amount of time on it. I'm just
A lot of time.
Planning Commission.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just concerned that we haven't collectively kind of looked at it, like as a community and had like public meeting on it versus just a hearing. But you guys know how I feel on that, and I'll leave it at that.
I'll give you a spoiler.
Sure.
There's not a whole lot of surprises. It's an update. And so, there were some massaging and no like major overhaul here. It's really trying to clean it up more than anything else.
Okay.
We really need a newer, when it's time for a new comprehensive plan, that's when we really need to sink our teeth in and make it a document that's a little bit easier to use. It's a pretty hefty document at 160 pages, I think it is. So take a look at it. And like I said, spread the word that the draft is out there on the website for anyone to take a look at. But no big surprises, I don't think. Tom and then Mary.
Is that just the draft that's 160 pages? Is that the whole comprehensive plan?
That's all inclusive. Mary?
Just a reminder of the date for the April meeting. It's still the second Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 10th.
Okay.
Anyone else? Should we move on to the 2023?
Sure. So I don't have an order per se for any of these items. However, the Bayfield Street project, in my view, is front and center. And that's where this coming year we'll be spending most of our time on. The DOT will be bidding out their portion of the project this August, and with the intention of starting the detour improvements on Omaha and Bigelow yet this fall. We will be most likely bidding out the utility portion of this project late fall, early winter, so November-ish. So we'll need everything set for that. So with that, we're also beginning the process here of the phase 2 planning. Depending on how you look at it, we're either right on track or we're a little behind. The state is leaving the scheduling of phase 2. They originally pushed it, originally the schedule for 2026, they pushed it to 2027, but they're open to moving it back to 2026. What we will ultimately recommend on that is going to be based on funding. If we do get a significant grant that we're hoping for, then we can move it up. Otherwise, if we don't, it would have to be 2027, otherwise we're not going to be able to afford it. So that's where we're at. Phase one is going to cost us $4 million. And the structure on some of the grants that we would apply for will only occur every 3 years. So don't like the idea of having an unfinished city for 3 years, but we may not be able to avoid it. So we are working on all of that. We have to put together the whole financing this fall as well. I would include any potential financing for any other projects that would need to be done within the next 5 to 10 years, because we are going to be locked in and most likely very close to our debt capacity. So pretty much everything else is going to be limited. So we have to give a lot of thought to what we're going to pay for here, because we're not going to have the opportunity to do much for several years.
Just a quick correction, I think you had said Omaha and Bigelow. In fact, it's Holman and Bigelow.
Holman and Bigelow, yes, thank you. The broke down is, of course, another project that we hope to see significant movement on this year. With the passage of this resolution, that grant application should be submitted very soon, and hopefully they will be working on getting the old building removed and submitting plans for the new facility so that they can begin construction this summer on that. Of course, you're all aware of the campground planning and expansion, which is a significant topic, and I'm sure we'll be discussing that next month. And you know, the timing of this is critical with if we are going to move forward with this project and the potential borrowing that we would need to do for it. It all has to go in together with what we need to do this fall. So that's why we.
And one piece has been approved.
The one piece has been
approved by council, the overflow area.
Correct. But if we're going to do anything else with that second one, we've got to go forward with both of them together.
Right, which is why somebody gave me a 3-month public involvement timeframe, Karen. I'm just kidding. 4 months, I'm just kidding. No, but we did it, so we did it, we totally did it. So, yeah, but I just want to be clear, because I've been having to keep to remind people that a piece of this has already been approved. So, I mean, that piece is moving forward.
Except the financing.
Exactly.
And that financing
that's what I was
has
gonna
been
say.
approved.
No, but I'm just saying the concept to do something there and the concept of what's to be proposed there has been approved by council. So,
But fine, yeah.
With that, this is a revaluation year for the city. We of course have delayed the revaluation as long as possible because there's no advantage to the city of doing this sooner, because we're capped with property tax. You don't get any more property tax just because your valuation is going up. So we've delayed this, but it has to be done this year, and it will be done. That is in process, and we'll be doing some public education regarding that here in the coming months. The assessor is currently getting his information ready, and so we're ready to send it out. That will mean that we'll have a late board of review. We'll give time for our new council members to get all trained up on that. The board of review will probably be in August, September, well, as late as we can do it. For that, and I would expect there'll be a lot of questions and probably a lot of cases with that, since it's been 18 years or so since the city has been revalued. So not used to this.
Scott, can I just ask, on this one, is the it includes the entering factor by the assessor?
What we approved was a drive-by, no entering of the home. That if we did that, it would be more expensive. So this is a $60,000 project for us.
All right, thanks.
Is that gonna be a drive-by or is he gonna use a drone? I know there was talk of using a drone.
To my knowledge, this is a drive-by. He has not talked to me about it, a drone. Sidewalks, as the mayor had indicated, yes, we'll have to decide some of the sidewalks related to the phase 2 of the Bayfield Street project. I know that this has been an issue for some time. We've got some conflicts. One of the things that we're going to have to do is, one, get an inventory of what do we have. And I'll be speaking with our public works director about doing that as soon as all of the snow melts, so that we can kind of get that done and add that into our database, which would be very helpful. So we have that. 2, we're going to have to then decide where are the priority areas and how do we want to move forward on this issue as a city. Where are sidewalks important? In my view, clearly Bayfield Street's important, maybe Washington Avenue, branching off to the schools, to the county complex, making some interconnections there out. But do you really want to have sidewalks in all of the streets, in all of the residential areas on both sides of the street? You know that we don't have the staff to enforce snow removal. It's not going to get done. So we'll have to have those discussions and those issues. And then it's also going to be, how is it going to be paid for? It's going to be very difficult because this would have to be done as part of a borrowing as well in order for us to pay for it, unless you're doing very small sections at a time. And we will be pushing our debt limit on the Bayfield Street projects unless we get unforeseen windfall. So those are some of the things that we have to think about in moving forward with that project. Otherwise, we have some improvements. This building needs some attention. We weren't able to complete all of that last year. We ran out of money. We had to do the asbestos removal, so we weren't actually able to replace the HVAC system. The windows have been on the list for over 10 years to get done. We are attempting to convert our email to a .gov type system, working with our IT contractor on that. So I'm waiting for that. We have to apply for that application and get that. I was hoping that we'll have that by April when we have new council members on, but we'll see if we're able to accomplish that. And we're just beginning the process of updating the website with a new provider as well. So, and know that we will have police contract negotiations coming up this year, and that will usually start sometime in July. I'd like to get that done prior to the end of the year, otherwise we end up in a back pay situation that just creates more work for us. So try to avoid unnecessary stuff. So those are the large items. It was suggested, the mayor had suggested to me that we, what else goes on here? Well, I kind of compiled a list of the daily stuff that occurs all the time, just to remind everyone. So our heads are spinning, and I don't do this alone. I have a good group of people here that help, and I very much appreciate all of that.
it's a very good but very small group of people that make all these things happen. And I did ask Scott to come up with a list of what are those ongoing types of things that are happening at City Hall, regardless of what our big priorities are and the big projects that we would like worked on. And so this was very helpful. Thank you for putting this list together. I think this is a list that should live somewhere permanently, so everyone can refer to it on the website as, day-to-day operations at City Hall, so that people know what's happening behind the doors here, because not that many people actually come into City Hall unless they have to. Honestly, everyone's driving by and probably doesn't really give it a second thought, but there's a lot that's happening in this building with our now ever increasingly small staff. So this was a really good chance for us to take a look at what are those things that are happening on a day-to-day basis. And, to Scott's point in his introduction to that list, the fact that so much of his time is taken up with zoning. We used to contract out for the permits and zoning. And that was one of the things that had to be cut over the years because of not having any room to grow, with no new development in the city and no way to increase our levy. We have had to continue to cut over the years. Our rec program has been cut. Our zoning contractor has been cut. And so that just continues to get absorbed within the staff. And 50% of his time is a lot of time. That's a lot of time. And some of that, of course, well, it's all good. It's all good that's happening, but some of that is our big projects that come in, with permitting for development. That takes a lot of time and planning. It's, again, for the betterment of the city, so it's a good thing, but it is very time consuming. So we do need to really think about, is everyone okay with these being the priorities? Does anyone have any thoughts that they would like to add or questions on those that are listed here?
I have a couple questions.
Sure. Go ahead.
My first question is the housing development up at Bayfield County. And I'm just wondering the timing of that, because I feel like, how much time is that gonna take? I know it's not on our land, but I feel like, I don't know.
They'll have to come to us for permits.
For permits and
Right.
this whole zoning piece of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's no big deal, but I just know that housing is super, obviously it's a priority for the council and our community, and people are really talking about that. And so I don't know how much of a role that should be, or if that should be a priority to support that in any way that we possibly can. People keep talking to me about that connectivity of that housing development to the community, which has to do with the sidewalks, right? Or a trail or something to get, because that's kind of on the outskirts of town. So I just want to get your opinion on that piece and the timing of it the next year.
And that's a good question. That project is going to really be predicated on whether or not the developer for that receives their WIDA grant. And those are highly competitive. And if they're not successful this round, they'll be forced to wait until the next round out. Hopeful that they are successful with that. But as far as the city's involvement right now, there isn't much for us to do on that other than to keep it in mind in anything that we may be planning on phase 2 at Bayfield Street. We've discussed that internally. However, should that be successful, and if I recall correctly, if they were successful, they'd be looking at a 2024 start date. That would require utility extensions. So we'll have to work with them on that and all the other required zoning permits and so forth. I had spoken with them, they would most likely need to apply for what is called a planned development district, which would probably be the easiest in their case. But that's still a cumbersome process. We have a couple other large projects that are kind of out there. There's a lot of behind the scenes planning, but they're not ready to come forward yet. That will take a lot of time as well. And that's where it gets very tricky because they submit and sometimes it's not at a convenient time, but we have to deal with it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe maybe not 23, but maybe 24, we might, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like having some kind of line item in there for these bigger projects that we know are on the horizon is something to think about because I think they're really important. Anyway, so that's one thing. The other thing that I have is, I just look at everything and I think like the West End Park campground expansion planning, I just don't know if that's a priority for next year. I understand like that the council voted for that back in March and that we've been doing work on that, but I don't know, there's so many things that within the community and the recreation and the campgrounds, I mean, we have like, I don't know, we dropped and we're not doing the tennis courts and we have a decrepit maintenance issue of a tennis court that we wanted to do a pickle. I mean, I could go on and on. And so for me, like having an expansion planning for a campground as a priority with all the other stuff that we have with maintenance and all the work that we do at our campgrounds and our parks and our recreation sites, I just don't know. So that's just my gut.
You know, this list is for you to debate and discuss.
And that's why I'm bringing it up.
So, and I don't disagree. The list is endless. I could add many more items on here. There are, you know, we have marina projects. We have, I know I get comments, you know, the tennis courts, the fishing pier, the stage,
right?
The stage,
the bike park.
Right, and it never ends, and
right.
And that's why my head spins and my eyes go around, and you know, smoke comes out sometimes. But
I've seen it.
But you know, that's up to you. I can't say that we're going to get everything done. We're going to do the best that we can. But if you want to. And I think that there was good work on the park committee without, you know, doing the inventory of the parks and putting the needed improvements of each of the parks within the plan. I think that document will be very helpful. But it's up to this group to reprioritize the priorities, if you will.
I know.
So we moved forward with the campground because it was felt that was a way to increase the revenue so that we can get more done. Because although we're hearing some positive things from Madison of breaking this financial stalemate, it isn't done yet. Right. And I can't count any chickens until those eggs hatch. So we have to stay the course. And right now, expanding the campgrounds today is one of the very few mechanisms that we do have to change our revenue picture that we can control. And that's why it had been the priority.
And I'm just going to chime in real quick with also the timing of the financing is really critical on that. And so with the campground plan that was approved in 2015, with a process that started in 2012, knowing that this was one of the only ways that we're able to increase our revenues, and then having that financing timeline creeping up on us, I don't know, honestly, how time intensive for our staff the campground planning would be when it's you know, the council deciding on the concept and then the engineering firm coming up with the design and then making that happen. I don't know how much of an additional burden that would be when you weigh out the, you know, when you do the cost benefit analysis of that. I just, I think that the timing of it is very critical. Although, of course, there are lots of other things that are happening at the same time. So I get that you're concerned about the amount of things that are
Yeah,
happening
I'm
here.
concerned
And then
because
Carl has another one.
Yeah, right, and we get sidetracked a lot, right? We just approved a bunch of money to be last city council out of the parks fund, you know.
And those things are always gonna happen.
Those things are gonna happen, I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
because-
like,
Because the things that are in the budget aren't even talked about here
I know,
necessarily.
I know.
Like
I'm
all
just
those
saying it's
little
a lot.
capital projects that get approved in the budget, that's just on the to-do list now, you know?
I know, I'm just saying a lot, like, I just, as the Parks Committee rep, I just know that we've done a lot of work, like you said, about all the maintenance, all the stuff that needs to be done at our parks, and I know we need money to do that, but
Yeah.
we also just took a big chunk and put it towards, you know, the matching on the stage, you know, so there's just like, I just want us to start thinking about that, deferred maintenance and that kind of piece is huge.
Agreed. Carl, did you have something to add to the list?
Well, it's just one of those awful things. At the EMS conference in Green Bay last week, I was made aware of requirement by Medicare to participate in an ambulance data collection process. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes.
I looked at the instructions and it's 440 pages long. And if you don't comply with it, and I did check, and we're listed as year 3, and I think that's this year. I know the city of Ashland, the Great Divide, and the town of LaPointe are on the list with us. So
What is the list?
it is to document every single expense for the ambulance by run. And Medicare is going to use that to adjust their ambulance compensation rate. And if you don't participate in this little survey, they're going to cut your reimbursement by 10%.
Instead of potentially increasing it based on the data.
Yep. It's just another nightmare.
But that's not necessarily a council,
But when you talk about this list of.
the ongoing to-do list.
Yeah, it's gotta be an ugly one.
This is just a summary.
I don't think anyone here is aware of all of the reports that have to be submitted. I get my daily marching orders from the Department of Revenue, of all the things that they are requesting, that do this and do that, or by the way, if you don't do that, then you're in trouble. So, I am aware of the, I can't speak to all the details, but I am aware of the ambulance reporting issue, and I know that we've had some discussions with our billing contractor on that as well. So I thought we had submitted what was supposed to be submitted, so we were gonna double check our name on that list, so.
That's what the list was, that list, okay. Anyone else? Go ahead,
Well,
Jen.
my last part is the fact that you spend 50% on the zoning, kind of like freaks me out a little bit. And I hear all the time, like, Washburn, we don't enforce zoning, we have a lot of people that don't, like, maybe apply for certain things because we don't have somebody checking on stuff, because we don't do any monitoring of zoning. So my question is, at some point, it would be really nice to reduce the amount of work that you have to do for zoning. And so if we can figure out, if we do something even part-time, and we start to do a little bit more monitoring and get compliance, maybe we can get more money in to pay for that position. You know how sometimes they do that, I don't know if it works. But I guess the whole 50% of your time for zoning is not an efficient way to utilize your skills. That's what I got to say with that. You agree?
Well, I do agree. And-
Nobody wants to do zoning.
and this is-
Cities have zoning administrators, like most cities. Maybe not the sets. But we used to, contractor.
Contractor, yeah.
Yeah, anyways, go ahead.
And it is an issue, and this is a concern that I have brought up to the Plan Commission. And I know that there's a topic on the Plan Commission agenda. There's a proposed zoning ordinance that I do not support, and I will not support it. There's no way I will support that ordinance, because if you do, you're gonna have to find someone else. And that's the way it is. I can't do any more with zoning. I have pushed to reduce the amount that we have to do on with the code to make it less of an administrative burden. So that is where I'm at on the zoning.
Okay.
Just a comment on zoning. You maybe remember that I've been serving on a pilot project throughout Bayfield County that WIDA has been sponsoring to look at the whole issue of affordable housing and what are some ways in which areas can have pilot projects to look at the issue of more housing in their jurisdiction. And one of the subcommittees, or the subcommittee that I was on, was looking at zoning as a deterrent to new housing oftentimes. And we've done some research both within the state and nationally, and if you look at where zoning gurus that talk about the future of zoning, they're looking at and writing a lot about simplification of zoning. In fact, the League published a fairly lengthy document regarding the whole issue of zoning, that sometimes a person suggests something and it sounds good, and maybe to what end it really does make sense. But then when you get into administering it, you find, oh my gosh, this is taking a lot more time than we really anticipated. And so, again, I just share that the trend is, how can we make zoning more straightforward and easier, not only for the staff that have to deal with it, but for the resident of a community that's applying, so that they understand it, so it isn't as convoluted as sometimes people feel it is.
Well, yeah,
You
it's not easy to understand our zoning code, and we all know that.
Yeah, and
That's
so,
why Scott probably spent so much time
Right.
trying to figure it
and
out.
so that pilot idea has been pitched to WIDA. We did that 3 weeks ago. We are one of 3 ideas that WIDA is considering. We may or may not be selected, but if we are, then we would get some money to look again across zoning in Bayfield County, including Washburn and Bayfield, and then the county, because Bayfield and Washburn are the only 2 communities that have zoning apart from county. All the other
At this time.
At this time, but all the other jurisdictions come under county zone. And again, I can't anticipate whether we'll be selected or not, but we made a good pitch, I think, to say that this is something that would really help us and help housing in general in our communities. So stay tuned, and sometimes pilots are helpful, sometimes they're not, and so I can't guarantee that we're going to solve all problems with zoning, but it might get us a step or two to a more simplified and a more streamlined. In fact, Bayfield, the city of Bayfield, has had a group that's been looking specifically at their zoning code in a way to do some streamlining. That report isn't done yet, and so that would be another template that we would look at to say, hey, how did this community deal with straightening out or streamlining their zoning? So there's, I think, some threads that hopefully could come together in a way that would help us in Washington look at our zoning in a more comprehensive way and make it more straightforward.
Thank you for sharing that.
But I mean, let's just be clear that zoning is super important. Right?
Well, I'm not saying
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, like, in that sense, but I guess I was going more towards the line of like sharing responsibility of like, if Bayfield do they have a zoning administrator? Like,
No.
they don't either,
No.
and so like sharing a position of somebody to kind of help out, that's kind of the line that I was
Well,
thinking about.
here's a concept. What we're asking, the planning commission is asking to do, is not create anything new. but to extend an already architectural review that exists in the downtown core to the both sides of the city. So that businesses that want to invest in the city know that when they build something, they're not gonna have a pole building put next to them. This is what this is about. I doubt this is going to create it may create a little more work, but this isn't revamping anything. This is creating an environment on Main Street that will allow investors and people to understand that we care, number one, what our city looks like, right? And this isn't asking somebody to, paint their building purple or whatever. This is just extending our already existing architectural review to the entire city on Main Street, not the city, just Main Street. So that people driving through eventually will see a city that they like to see and something that we will enjoy. And it's my opinion that if this occurs and people understand what they're getting into as far as business goes, so that they're not at risk of having a junk pile put next to them, there could be more investment on Main Street, which would then create more money, more tax revenue that could pay for these things. And I understand that Scott is twisted up about this, but the fact of the matter is, if we don't do something, we might as well throw in the towel. I mean, honestly. Well, I'm sure Scott and I are going to be doing this.
I was gonna just comment on this, we're not gonna talk about specific issues coming from.
We're getting a little deep into the weeds here.
Our city administrator is looking at 50% of their time in zoning.
I question the 50%.
And
I'd
that's
like to see
fine.
some matrix on it.
And that's fine. I'm just saying, like, I feel like that's a lot, and I feel,
I think
again,
that's a number that just got yanked out of here.
well,
It's an estimate, okay, based on someone who's doing the work on a day-to-day basis.
and I'm fine with that. I'm just saying, like, I feel again that between that and everything that we have in 24, we do not have realistic goals. That's it. Like, I mean, we might be able to move, so if we're comfortable moving towards some of these things, that's fine. But
That's all we can ever do.
Well, or you can take some things off the plate. I mean, you have choices, right? And so we've been talking a lot about an environment where we want people to work and be healthy. And when I come into City Hall and I watch Tony and I watch Scott, we've been doing this in the government right now too. Like people are being slightly overworked, and that doesn't make a healthy environment where people like their jobs, want to come to work. And so I just want us to be careful. And so I think sometimes this group, we sometimes get off track and we put additional things on the plate for administration that we don't always need to do when the timing is there. We can wait. And I feel like sometimes we're not very good at that, and we keep doing it. And I think this year, particularly with the street phase, with everything that's going on with coming up in 24 and 25, what we're doing with our downtown, how much work, and we want to do that right. I just want us to reflect on even sidewalks being on the shores. So that's my point.
Understood. So I'm just looking at the difference here. So this year we had, I think, 7 plus the other projects, and this year there's 6 plus the other projects. 2 of them are carryovers. So I don't know.
That's fine.
Does anyone else have anything that they want to say about the list here and the priorities and?
Whether or not we have a more streamlined or more complex ordinance that we need to follow. I would like to hear a little bit more about what you could foresee doing to relieve some of the burden on our staff as far as what Tammy manages with answering a million questions that we have, trying to understand any permits we're needing to apply for, or for anybody that has to deal with what the contracted, work was done. I mean, would you contract out again? Is that even feasible, to reallocate funds? It had been cut, so those funds went somewhere. Have a new person on staff, full-time, to train for that position or to hire somebody.
Are you saying in an ideal world with
I'm wondering,
funds
yeah.
that are available, or?
Because I'm seeing this as a concern, and I want to also say I really appreciate this list too. I think I've been saying that for a long time, that there's a lot that I hear about when the lists come out of what's been overwhelming this week and why it's so hard to get things done, and we couldn't meet this deadline for some grant because I had all these things come up and all these requests from Department of Revenue, and so this is really helpful to keep in mind. And no matter what the percent really is in your time put into zoning, what do you see relieving it? What are some options for us to consider?
Just before you answer that, I don't know that we're discussing that right now, honestly. I don't know that we can get into that type of
Seems
planning
like that
at this
might
point.
need to be part of one of the priorities though. Doesn't it?
Gotcha.
Trying
So
to
you're saying as bringing
review how zoning maps can be handled, how it can be either reduced from your plate or your daily tasks, and how else it can be taken care of.
Well, and something else that kind of ties in with what Karen was saying, that is part of that is we need an updated zoning code that isn't this complicated. You know, in an ideal world. But I don't know, Scott, do you want to answer Laura's question in regards to prioritization and of tasks and how that could help?
So the issue of being able to contract something out like zoning, I think would be difficult. That was 10 years ago when we last did that. One, we'd have to find the funding to do it, so we have to take that from someplace. So that would be really a finance committee issue. I don't know how to do that at this point without cutting somebody else. It's not something that someone can just instantly do. It takes a long time to get familiar with that code, how it all works, how you apply it, the history, and so forth behind it. So it's, I think the effort really should be streamline areas and when certain permits are required and when they are not. That is what I would prefer to see.
Do that, or are you involved in that as well?
A staff, as the current zoning administrator, I'm on the staff of the plan commission and have made recommendations that is on the plan commission's to-do list. It was started, but then it was stopped with other projects.
Including the comprehensive plan update that needed to happen. I saw a hand, does that sound?
Yeah, I want to make a motion.
Can we move on to the next item? Does I don't think that that's a motion that we're considering right now. Right now, the motion that we would consider is for either approval or an amendment to the proposed goals.
Oh, I didn't know we were looking for a motion. I didn't know we were looking for a motion.
Discussion and action on the 2023 goals and objectives
I'll make a motion to approve
as presented.
as presented.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve these goals as presented in a second. So motion by Tom, second by Carl. Here, just one quick
question before you call for the vote.
Go ahead, Terry.
I think it was wise on your part and Scott's work on it to have the list of 24 items. I think that every new council person should have that in their binder at all times, because that distracts staff when they're thinking futuristically about the Bayfield Street Phase 1 or Bayfield Street Phase 2, or, you know, what we're going to do about sidewalks or what we're going to do in West End or not. And those are kind of the meat and potatoes of running a city government. All of those things need to happen. You know, you have to answer the phone, have permits, have license, have reservations, have records, have insurance, review, hiring, et cetera, et cetera. That's the meat and potatoes of a city government. What Scott has listed in terms of his priorities are the things that we do to make things better, things run more smoothly, you know, have a better Bayfield Street, et cetera. So I just think it was very, very helpful, and very, very wise to put that together, because you gotta have that stuff done first, really. And the other perspective. Yeah, and the other stuff is all really important to make us more vibrant, to make us look better, to deal with issues that need repair, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to underline that. I just think it's so important that councilors keep that list kind of in the forefront. As Jen said, we typically can get off in another area and say, oh, well, would that be good to do? Let's add that.
Yeah, the Weston Park expansion came in March of 2023.
Of 2022?
2022. It wasn't a priority. It came up, council approved it, we went down that. Big
But I think that's another whole discussion.
I'm just saying.
It was a priority in 2022, or did it get added in?
No, it got added in.
There was a discussion on the budget and stuff, and about
It got
stuff
added.
going on east of the Cobot, and there was 2 of us against that. And it was voted to stop that, and it was brought up to do this expansion, which I originally authored when I first got on the council.
It's fine, I'm just telling you, like, that was added in, that was
Sure.
not a priority.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And,
That's what I'm saying, that was my point.
And the reason it was added in is because we are limited by our budget, and that is literally the only way that we can bring in more revenue. And so I think the council decided to add it into the priorities.
As I recall, I had actually recommended that the council do that in the budget process. So I had actually requested that be discussed.
So there is a motion and a second. Is there any other comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. Thank you very much for the discussion. All good. All good information. Yes, our next item then is to go into closed session for consideration of sale of property and for personnel matters. Do we need a motion to go into closed session? Okay, Tom. And a second by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yeah, we met. Motion carries. Let me know. Oh, roll call vote. Thank you.
The employee of the city of the building, what is the job?
Oh,
Okay,
Dave Anderson,
Yes.
Earl Broberg,
Yes.
Jen Mazias,
Yes.
Aaron McGrath,
Yes.
Tom Nemes,
Yes.
Karen Dobachek,
Yes.
Lord Tulowitzki.
Yeah.
We are going into closed session at 6:55.
Okay.
Jeremy so much.
Jeremy, thanks for joining us. You can leave or I can kick you off.
He's sleeping.
You can just.
End this, yeah. You can end the online meeting, because we'll adjourn out of closed session then.